Welcome back to the dopest show you won't get sick of. I'm Spencer. This is Sasha. I spent most of my 20s in federal prison, but I've been off heroin since April 9, 2010. I've got a lot of stories about the stupid stuff I did to get put in prison. I've also got a lot of stories about the crazy stuff that happened while I was in prison. And God forbid you end up in prison. You won't have to make some of the same mistakes I made. So before I get this started, I'm just going to say, I don't judge anybody. Live your life, do what you want to do. Just don't tell me what to do. And that's all I care about. As long as you don't tell me live your life how you want to be. So I'm going to tell this as respectfully as I can. Probably more respectful than any other prison-related channel would tell it. But, certain thing, I'll try to be respectful to everybody. So I'm just giving that little disclaimer before this. But this is about a trans inmate went by Rica. So Rica ended up in Petersburg Medium from California. I was in the drug program at the same time Rica was in the drug program, and in some of the small groups where you have to talk about your addiction and stuff, Rica talked about smuggling dope for the cartel and got in trouble. Of course, go figure, smuggle so many loads across the border, you're going to get caught sooner or later. And I guess California prison politics don't play with the whole trans stuff, so Rica got sent to all the way to the East Coast to Petersburg Medium. So even at Petersburg Medium, the Mexicans had politics. So Rica fell under Paisas and Sureños. It's the only two. Now, Sureños, for the most part, were American-born Mexicans that were part of gangs. Paisas has a lot of American-born people in it, but it's a lot of people that were illegal immigrants or born in Mexico, came over here. That's just a distinct thing. So even though both groups are Mexican groups, it's there's a big difference, being born and raised here than being born in Mexico. There's difference in how just the cultural and everything else. Even though they're both Mexican, it worked a little bit differently, if that makes sense. But Rica was just, I'm assuming, American born because talk just like anybody else. There's another guy who's a part of this independent group called the Haters. I believe he was from Bristol, which is like Virginia or Tennessee. I think there's two Bristols. I think it's like split down the middle. But anyway, quiet fella, didn't really bother a whole lot of people. The Haters is the name of the group. It's just an independent white group. The Aryan Brotherhood and other people, that were there looked at them like they were a joke. There's other stories about that, but they're in Brotherhood. Shot caller actually handling the shot caller of the Haters, shanked him in the face. It's a pretty wild story, but anyway, somehow you never know. Whenever somebody comes and they're open with that type of life, people come out of the woodwork and flock to them, just all of a sudden, out of nowhere. There was one instance in another situation where a guy who was a devout Muslim for 10, 15 years, somebody who showed up at the compound and he just said, listen, I'm not doing the Muslim thing anymore. I'm going to go off. We're going to be a couple. Y'all got a problem? Do something. He was about 6'6", 300 pounds. So they're just like, well, we don't want no problems, homie. And just let him go off. That actually ended in a fight. It's rule number 3, don't mess with the punks. And I say punks, I don't mean it in derogatory so nobody get upset with me, but that is a term that is used in prison. So, anyway, these people, the guy from the woods, the Haters basically like the woods, okay, more or less. I never heard that term, the woods. I've heard some people say Peckerwood, but as a group, that wasn't a term that was used. So, but more or less, I assume that's what it could be. A lot of people were just independent, the independent people from each area, by race, usually how it went. But they started being around each other a whole lot more. And basically, the guy who was a part of the woods quit sitting at the special tables they had in the kitchen. Quit associates, most of them, and a lot of people bad talked to him, as you can imagine. He got scorned, and he kind of just accepted this is what I'm going to go do. Now, the Paisas, even at Petersburg Medium, there's a whole lot of different stuff, but the Mexicans had serious rules. The Paisas were the deepest group, and I want to tell you something about why they had the most power. Number one, they had the most people. There were 300 or better of them there. Second off, okay, all this dope you think's coming across the border. Most of these guys, there were some of the guys who were like some of the top, Like, these guys aren't getting caught with a brick or two. They're getting caught with, there's one that got caught in a submarine, with 200 bricks. I mean, these are the guys, as a whole, there's some powerful people that are a part of their group and their organizations, too. So they've got influence, a lot of influence. There's one guy, down the rabbit hole side story, a young fella who apparently is big up in the cartel. He had people flying to come see him every other week. They were flying from Mexico to come see him every other week. But anyway, so they become an item. They go off. They do their own. They're doing their thing. The Paisas have a rule. They allow people. There was another trans person that was a Paisa, but they're not allowed to act on it. They're not allowed to, they just have to, they're not allowed to act on it. If they get caught acting on it, or if any of the other Paisas get caught doing any type of stuff like that with, some of the dudes or whatever, like, they're going to get checked in or beat up and sent off the yard. That's how it worked. That's what their policy was. Now, Rica was in the mix. A lot of the people, you saw like that, the game there, they just kind of stayed quiet and stayed out of the way. They had a man that like spoke for them and everything else. Rica was like out there doing and gambling, everything else, Now, something about Rica, yeah, looked feminine. You walked by Rica at a table, you thought that was a girl. Rica was 6'4" and 210 pounds over a lanky frame. Okay, so even though, Rica looked skinny, that's a long frame, and that's some weight. And I assume coming from California, ended up in Petersburg, Rica had been in a handful of fights, so that's something to take into account. So my Celly Armando was the number 2 of the Paisas, so that gave me an interesting thing. A lot of the stuff that happened with the Paisas, I got the inside scoop of because they'd have meetings all the time. Go out there, stay in a circle, talk. Armando, he hated that. Because they called meetings, the guy who was the head of it called meetings just to basically, I think, because he was the leader of it, it made him feel like he had authority. So they'd go stand in the circle and do their little meetings, and Armando's like, it's stupid. It messed with the afternoon nap. He'd have to go out there and stand and talk about nothing. But he came in and he basically told me, oh, amigo, something's going to happen. And I'm like, oh, what's up? And he says, well, you're not allowed to act in that. And basically he told me so many of the Paisas were cool with Rica. They didn't have a problem with Rica. They didn't want any, so many of them got along with Rica. Rica was in the mix. A lot of them had deals with Rica and all that. They didn't have a problem with it, but there was a handful that had a big problem with it. One in particular was a short, stocky, probably about 5'6", 200 pound, very fit, Mexican fella. And I saw something. You kind of piece certain things together. I don't know the whole story. All I can do is speculate on what I saw. Whenever Rica went off with this dude from the woods, this short, stocky fella kept having problems, kept making faces and stuff. And you saw Rica go over here and talk to the short, stocky fella, and the short, stocky fella's looks like he's pleading with Rica. So I'm wondering maybe if there wasn't something going on there, and he got his feelings hurt that Rica's with this wood dude now. Okay, see what I mean? So I think that it's speculation. I don't know, but it kind of seemed like it. So basically, what he had told me was that most people, like the overwhelming majority of them, were just like, look, Rica's not bothering. What's Rica really doing? Going off with this person, whatever. Leave him alone. But there were these few people that had an issue with it. And he had told me something was going to happen about it. That there were it was just about 3 of them that were really pressing the issue, but they were telling Rica, you got to check in. Now, Rica was in the drug program. The drug program takes a year off your sentence, and you get 6 months halfway house. So that's 18 months you get out early, because the halfway house you get let out early. So if you got 5-year sentence, you're going to do 4 years and 3 months on good time. You get a year off, that's going to take you to 3 years and 3 months. You get 6 months halfway house, they're going to let you out after 2 years and 9 months. If Rica gets checked in, Rica can't get that time from the drug program. Okay, so Rica's like, and second off, Rica was not like, even though technically Rica was a punk, Rica wasn't a punk. When I say wasn't a punk, I mean Rica wasn't going to back down from somebody. There's a number of interesting incidents. I'm telling the future on that. Because I ended up down in the drug program, and Rica was one of the people. terribly annoying programmer. If you were talking loud or something, Rica's going to get you put in those timeout chairs and that stupid stuff. Drug programming has stupid punishments. Doing adult men with timeout chairs and stuff like that make absolutely zero sense. But anyway, Armando told me, look out the window tomorrow. He told me the time, roughly around the time during the hour. So I'm watching out the window. I'm like, something's going to happen here. Sometimes watching this stuff, you have nothing better to do. So it's like, it's like watching a TV show, some of this stuff, especially when it's going to kick off. So there's a few things I'm watching for. Something I started watching really carefully is if somebody has a problem, they're walking back and forth down the soccer field. If they go down to tie their shoe, a lot of the time they're pulling a shank out of the ground. See, they stick the shanks down the ground and tie a little loop, so they just put their finger in and pull it up. So I'm watching for that. I'm watching for other stuff. I'm waiting for the show. So Rica's with the wood dude, and the one stocky fellow pulls Rica over, talks to Rica, and then they split back up. And you see the wood dude, he's not. You figure he'd be sticking up for Rica or something. He didn't want no smoke at all. He was staying out of it. He was staying out of it completely. Which, come to think of it, if he had done something, regardless of the issues, the Pisces have a one jump on all jump policy. So if he'd gotten involved since he wasn't Pisa, every Pisa would have jumped on him. Hadn't really thought about that. But anyway, so stuff's a brewing. There's one guy who's tall and skinny. He doesn't have a lot of weight on him. There's one guy who's about average height, reasonable fitness. Then there's a short, stocky fella. So where people go to fight, outside on the rec yard at the minute usually, is there's a bathroom. It's right in the center of everything. So the yard is here, and you've got a hill, and they have an SUV that'll park up on the hill that overlooks everything. The reason people fight in the bathroom there is the wall that faces the SUV. SUV's not allowed to, junk gaze while you're trying to take a leak. So there's a wall, a brick wall. It has a ceiling, and then it comes up about 3-4 foot high around the sides of it. So they can't see. They can't see in there. So that's why people go to fight in there. So there's only one opening to the bathroom. Then there's a table in there that doesn't make sense. I don't know why there's a table in there, but to sum it up, there's only probably, even though it's probably about 10 by 15 foot, that big table comes out, then the ledge and everything, it's probably only about 5 foot by 15 foot that you actually got to work with and move around. So you got a little room to move around, but not enough for people to ambush, So basically, there's all these things, the hype up to it and everything else. And Rica basically sent the little wood guy off to the side, and Rica went in the bathroom and was like, "What's up?" The first guy comes in, Rica, boom, 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 drops him. He's down. The second guy comes in, Rica, boom, 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 even throws a knee, gets him. The third guy, the short, stocky guy, comes in, and this was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. First off, I'm like, whoa, he just dropped two people. Now, like I said, 6'4" with a long reach, 210 pounds. Rica had a little weight to throw around. The third guy that came in, the short, stocky guy, about 200 pounds, the big dude, came in, and you know how when people put their hand on a little kid's head, and somebody's like, and the little kid's like swinging at the air? That happened. Rica had palmed this guy's head, and he's swinging at the air, and Rica sent this punch that came from the next city over. Oh, I didn't get you. No, it was a boom, and clocked him. Kind of looked like Rica spit on him. It's hard to see, but kind of did this, that, and then started pointing at every one of them, yelling at every one of them. Then walked back off, started doing laps with the wood dude. And I'm just like, Rica just beat up 3 dudes. 3. I was like, what? So after that, now you got an issue. Pisces had an internal conflict. They had to have a meeting. And see, that was what was interesting, because, I see this happen, but Armando, as my cellie, he's telling me everything about it. My room is the 3rd floor. See, there's 3 V-shaped complexes, It's the third floor. See, there's 4 units in each V-shaped complex. You can enter each of the first 2 from the ground level. There's an exterior set of stairs with a fence around it so you can't throw somebody off. That's how I had to enter the building that I was in at the time. The wall that I had was the only wall of any complex that faced the yard. And being 3 floors up, it was awesome because anything that happened on the, I could see it. I could see whatever was going on happening on the yard. So I mean, it was kind of like having, like a skybox to watch an event on, kind of like that. And saw a number of stuff from that unit. And even then, when I went to the drug unit, 1 unit down, I ended up on the same wall again, facing outward. The first one I was in was ground level, which sucked because people could walk right up to your window and knock on it. So you had to cover your window up, or people going to see you doing number 2, you do whatever you do in the bathroom. You can't. Anybody on the ground floor better cover that window if they're going to do the Jack Shack or anything like that, because they're going to have some weirdo peeping Tom look in on them. I had to get out of there. No. Can't have that. That was too weird. And people go sit right up against that wall. I mean, that'd be like somebody coming up and sitting against your house right below the window. So I moved up to the 2nd floor. Ended up with a Sereno shot collar from them. And that's, I got along with the Amigos, who I got along with mostly. But that was when I was in the drug unit. But at this time, I was on the 3rd floor, which faced the yard, saw everything. So Armando came in, he says, "Oh, this is bad." He says, "I got to talk about this because they weren't going to do nothing, but something happened, and you can't fight another paisa." So basically what happened was this. They made like this changed the whole politics of the compound. Basically, they said any type of person that comes in that was of that lifestyle had a choice. They could just go do their own thing. If they're a paisa, you can't act. They said, "We're not having that. But you have a chance right now to split away." So Rica, and there was another one, I don't know the other one's name, but they just said, "Okay, we're splitting." The 3 guys that initiated the fight with Rica, they got double messed up. They did a hit that wasn't, trying to jump Rica out of the yard, and that wasn't sanctioned. Okay? So they each had to take shots to the body standing up against the wall. Armando's usually the one that dished that out. See, they put your hands behind your head, stand with your back flat against the wall. If I just stand in the open and you punch me in the stomach, I've got room to move. But if my back's trapped against the wall and somebody's throwing body shots and they're good at throwing body shots, that's going to be pretty rough. And they throw, sometimes 15, 20, 30, however many. So each of them got lit up with a handful of body shots and they got put on the front line. What the front line means, as Armando explained it, if you mess up, you do something out of line, you cause problems. It's basically like, I've spoke about this before. Paisa, basically how they did was like, how if you got a little brother or sister and somebody messes with them and your little brother or sister was wrong and you knew they were wrong, but that person get ready to whoop them. And you have to go smack that person up and say, "Nah, you stay away from them. I don't care what they did. Get out." And then once you're alone with your little brother or sister, you tell them, "Now, you were wrong. I'm your brother. I'm not going to let anybody touch you, but you were wrong. Don't do that again." That's the type of situation we're talking about. So, but they had to do they had to make up for it by being on the front line. That meant next time somebody had to be jumped off the yard, they were going to be part of a hit team that was, to do it. They had to be part of a hit team that was going to go out and jump somebody off the yard next time that was going to happen. That was the consequences of their actions. They had to do that. So ultimately, there's other stories about it. There's a number of stories. See, being in the drug unit, people are petty. The drug unit, because I went down the drug unit not too long after that, and Rica was trying to be big in the drug unit. It's weird. A lot of the people that get picked on or get somebody says stuff about and stuff like that, they're the first ones in the drug unit to get a part of the program. Because how the drug program worked was you were supposed to tell on 3 people a month. Not things that could get them kicked out of the program, not things that could get them more time, not things that could get them any punishments. They had program punishments. So for instance, they make you walk this big sidewalk all the way around the compound, and then you have to walk an extra 1/16 of a mile to get to laundry. Beside the kitchen, there's a little sidewalk, and people would take that shortcut to laundry so then they wouldn't get stuck over there at laundry education between the move. If somebody took the shortcut people would hold. They have at the start of the program at like 8:30 in the morning. They have people come up, say, "Does anybody want to hold anybody accountable?" Somebody holds them accountable. Then they make you sit in timeout punishment chairs. Well, Rica really got tricked up for having that dude up in the room, because that dude was from another unit. They went up in the room, put the sign up, and that caused a whole. They had to make a poster and everything about breaking rules. Sometimes they make people make posters. There was one guy had a roommate. This is funny. The guy, I guess he had some type of a wiping problem and left a little bit doo-doo on the toilet seat. His roommate held him accountable. Now, see, imagine that. After he told on his roommate, he's got to sit in the cell with him on lockdown. But he told on him, and he said, "I observed feces, human feces, on the toilet." Well, they made his roommate make a poster about hygiene, and he made a funny poster. But I mean, how humiliating! But a lot of that type stuff, that's a lot of the stories that happen because people get in those wars, and Rico's always doing that. I say, I didn't do that. There were 4 people that ran the program, 1 black, 1 white, 1 Spanish, and the 4th could be like a Puerto Rican or a Mexican. They'd already graduated the program. They got paid like $150, $200 a month by the prison to run the program. And I paid 3 out of those 4 people off and said, listen, I don't want to sit in the timeout chairs ever. If somebody holds me accountable, I need you to just, and they'd wipe it under the rug. The one guy I gave Wellbutrin to. Apparently that was something that they abused a whole lot in there that I had no clue about until later on. There's stories about that later, a lot more stories about that later. But the one guy, Fishbone, I think was Fishbone. I gave him Wellbutrin, and he had me covered during the time he was there. After he left, had to move on to other people. But through there, I met some very interesting people. Anyway, so that's pretty much the story. But for my people who've been here for a minute, got something interesting for you. So I'm friends with Scott Sigmund. He's fought Roy Jones Jr., and he's fought Kelly Pavlik. He went the distance with Roy Jones Jr. in Roy Jones' hometown. He's got a boxing gym in Lynchburg, Virginia. He's got some young pros that are up and coming. Now, I'm friends with Scott. I mean, it's a good dude. He loves the story. Big Midget's Pink Sock is his favorite story. But anyway, I'm thinking about doing something with this, maybe getting what you guys see and what you think about it. They're these young fighters that, coming. They're kind of, doing the struggling fighter thing. They're making a few bucks. They're working at the gym to do it. But the sponsors really help. I'm thinking about sponsoring a fighter who I'm friends with, and there's this other fella too. And, something, maybe we could do that. Maybe we could be the sponsors of a couple professional fighters. Their videos are up. There's a thing called Southpaw Promotions. If you type that in, there's a young fella named Owen Hilton, spelled with the Y, and there's another one, Austin Deanda, Deanda, and they got some fights on there. Scott's got some too. Scott's incredible. I mean, he's one of the top people in the world. He's former WBC title holder. But that's something, interesting and thinking about. Supposed to be talking to him Friday. Supposed to be coming up. Him and Austin. I haven't met Austin, but Owen's a good kid. He's a really good kid. He's beat the piss out of me in sparring. He's half my size, and with hands. Nah, the kid's good. I mean, he's small, but my God, he's good. He has 1 loss, which he just avenged. He's I believe he's 5-1 right now. He took a big step up in competition with a guy who'd had a whole bunch of MMA fights that switched over to boxing. He lost the first one, but he just avenged that loss, and he's doing good, man. I believe that's he's 3 straight. Won his first 2, lost his third, I believe. But he's a good kid. He's got a crazy story. Might get him on here one day and tell it. He had some tough upcomings, but a good kid. It's something I'm seriously thinking about. And also, I can't see the super thanks stuff. I can only see it if it's in the comment section. But I found a new, it's not showing up on the studio. But I went back and I can see, transactional thing or super thanks on one. On the one video I did with my mom, there's $50 that's donated, but I only know about $10 of it that's donated because it showed up in the comment section. I guess maybe during the live, the premiere, that people are donating. But I'd like to thank you guys for that. I mean, just liking and comment. If you comment on this, if you liked it, press the like button. That is all I'll ever ask. But I like to thank anyone who donates to it. And incredible news, even more incredible news to come right now. I think I'm off federal probation. My mom said something about it today. She'd talked to them. And I'm all but certain, I'm not 100%, but if that's so, I got some wild stuff coming. I've got some really wild stuff coming. I'm allowed to talk to whoever I want to talk to. Don't have to worry about me being on federal probation talking to a felon. And I've done this by the book. I've done everything by the book perfectly. Even been a hermit the last few months just to be extra safe. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not running streets doing drugs or nothing like that, but it's just paranoia and extra careful. April 9th, 2010 was the last day that I was charged with a crime, and I've been on federal probation since. Think about that, kids. I mean, shoot, look at that. That's insane. That's a long time. But anyway, if you liked the video, if you think I earned it, press the like button. If not, that is 25 minutes and 37 seconds of your life. You're never going to get that back, but I truly hope you did. Let me know what you think about that boxing thing. I might even do a video letting one of them whoop me. Well, not letting them. They're going to whoop me on their own, doing some sparring with them. I'm got better feet than I do hands. You know, if it's kickboxing, I can throw hands, mix it in there. But in boxing, nah, I can't do nothing with any of those guys. They're really incredible. Like they are, it's all they do. They train 4 or 6 hours a day. But I got a lot of admiration for them. You know, I love it all. You know, judo brown belt at one gym, jiu-jitsu blue belt at another gym, Olympian teacher in judo, world champion teacher in jiu-jitsu, and then Scott, he's a world champion boxer I've done a couple years training with. Need to get back down there and do that some more. It's been a minute since I've been down there, but oh man, it's a funny dude too. Oh my lord, he'll keep you rolling. But got a lot of admiration for them, so I figured I'd throw that in there and see what y'all think. Could help somebody who's up and coming, even just a little bit, you know what I mean, a couple hundred something. It'd be nice. You know, regardless of what y'all think, I'm probably gonna, you know, do this, you know, and maybe get some footage of it and everything else. I think it'd be cool. I mean, everybody likes watching a good fight, and these kids can fight. They're not just, you know, trying to point score. They're going in there and they're handling people. So if you liked the video, press the like button. Y'all have a good one.